What is your "we will never speak of this again" moment? Story 1. I got up one night to get some water and found that my teenage son was in the kitchen getting food. He was behind the kitchen counter, so I could only see him from the waist up. When he came around the counter into the hall, two things happened simultaneously. He noticed me, and his eyes grew wide in horror, and I saw that he was butt naked except for a pair of socks. He starts trying to panic run backwards on the tile floor. Imagine Scooby-Doo trying to run but getting stuck in place in a flurry of limbs, but ends up slipping and taking a hard seat on the tile. Worst of all, he dropped his Hot Pocket. I made sure he was okay, and then went back to bed and laughed my butt off. Years later, we were driving and reminiscing about funny memories, and I said, "Do you remember that night?" And he cut me off with, "Yes." I didn't even have to specify which night. We knew, and we were silent. Take notes, everyone. This is the right way to be a parent. If you can't laugh at your teenagers flailing around naked on the floor, crying over their spilled Hot Pocket, then what is the whole point of having kids? Apparently, this kid needed his Hot Pocket so badly that he just couldn't be bothered to put on pants. I bet he will never look at those delicious microwave snacks ever again. Story 2. When my best friend died, we figured he would have liked a sky burial kind of. So at the height of the funeral party, we released his ashes into the heavens with a giant balloon. After a few meters of flight, the string had snapped, and his remains covered the mourning crowd. Everyone made their best efforts to get very drunk as soon as possible, and we will never speak of this ever. Story 3. I had internal bleeding and really low blood pressure. I was in the hospital and instructed to not try to stand or walk since I'd faint. I didn't obey that. I went to take a pee, and my girlfriend saw and chased after me. She caught up just in time to throw herself between me and the floor to prevent me from cracking my head open as I fell backwards unconscious, junk out, peeing all over everything on the way down. I awoke with her sandwiched between me and the tile floors, lying in a pool of my pee. And that's exactly the moment I realized I should marry that girl. And I did. But that's not the story I tell when someone asked, "When did you know that she was the one?" Right move, dude. Putting a ring on it. This girl literally took the fall for you and paid the price dearly. This is the type of incident that she could hang over you at any point if you need some reminding how awesome she is. Like, remember that time I saved your life and in return, you peed all over me? Yeah, thanks for that. Story 4. My husband and I work at the same small office. We were the first ones in that morning, and other employees usually don't show up for another hour or so. There's only one bathroom on our floor as it's a small business. Anyway, I had just had some habanero spicy thing the day before, and I was in for some punishment on this particular morning. I'm talking doubled over, clenching your stomach, your farts are fire punishment. I hear a knock on the bathroom door, and I assume it's my husband. "Hang on, I'm having the habanero squirts. I'll be out as soon as I can." I groan out between awful spurting sounds. I hear a female voice awkwardly reply, "Oh, okay. So sorry, Stacy, for pulling you into my terrible morning." Story 5. My mom walked in on me getting a BJ in high school. She immediately did a beeline in the opposite direction and said, "I didn't see anything." Then the girl and I went and ate dinner with them at our dinner table, and we never spoke of it again. Story 6. The smoking hot guy I met the prior weekend asked me out, and naturally I said yes. Because I just met him, I asked if I could drive, and he said no problem. On the way to get some grub, we're cruising along with the perfect tunes playing in the car, windows down, on an absolutely beautiful night. He looks over, I look over, and we're just both sparkling, you know? It was one of those moments where you want to take a mental snapshot. And then, I guess we must have driven through an area of something he was allergic to, because he sneezed a couple small ones, and then, with one massive blow, honked a huge wad of snot all over my windshield and dashboard. But, unbelievably, that's not the worst part. No, he pretended like it didn't happen, and then went about talking and scooping it up with his hands and smearing it onto his pants. I was beyond mortified. I was throwing up in my mouth, my eyes were watering, and he didn't want me to pull over to get it cleaned up. We had to go to dinner like that with snotty pants. And I ended up marrying him. We have never, ever spoke of it again, not even 40 years later. I don't know what the big fuss is about. This girl should be flattered that the guy has so much comfort with her that he didn't feel vulnerable about doing this in front of her. And apparently it worked if they tied the knot later. I think this story also emphasizes that if you are a good-looking dude, you can get away with some gross stuff. Story 7. I had surgery over the weekend and have been extremely constipated. Yesterday, I was squatting over a toilet, crying with a jar of Vaseline sitting next to me, and my friend, who had come to visit, opened the bathroom door and made eye contact with me as I was attempting to birth 5 days of fecal matter. She then slowly backed out and shut the door. Story 8. Had to stay with a work friend one night as we had a conference in his hometown the next day. It was weird enough staying in his spare room, but to top things off, he had a fancy modern bathroom with a square toilet. Which, of course, I blocked it up in the morning with a turd the size of Mount Fuji. After 30 minutes of fruitless searching for a plunger, while the situation went from bad to worse, he knocked on the door and asked if I was okay. I had to tell him not to come in, but to just hand me a effing plunger and some bleach. Apparently, his girlfriend did the same thing the first night that she stayed at his place, so at least I'm not alone. To this day, I cannot look him in the eye at work. Story 9. My husband and I were going to Thanksgiving dinner at the house of some of my dad's family that I only kind of knew. We got there, knocked, and a woman I didn't recognize let us in. We went into the home and there wasn't anyone there. There was no dinner, etc. So we're making small talk with this lady and I ask when everyone is coming. She asks what I mean. Turns out we were at the wrong house. The woman just thought we were friends of her husband because he would randomly bring people home and that we had simply arrived before he did. Explain to me how you end up at the wrong house. In the moment, did you forget about how house numbers and a GPS works? I mean, I get the possibility that this was the first time visiting that particular family, and maybe for the first time at the house, but I feel it doesn't take a lot of work to figure out which house to go into. Story 10. My wife and I were at my cousin's apartment in a big city. They have a balcony on the 40th something floor, and we're all outside on the balcony drinking some beers and getting a little drunk. My wife rests her beer can, thank God it was a can and not a bottle or glass, on the railing of the balcony. I scold her and go to move it when my half-drunk and clumsy self knocks it off, and we watch in horror as it falls in slow motion 40 stories and hits the ground like a bullet next to a crowd of people. We never mentioned it to anyone. Story 11. My divorced dad was playing horseshoes in a league with my aunt, my mom's sister. They went together one night when I was about 16. I went to a friend's house to sleep over and didn't think any more of it. Until I got home the next morning and her car was still in the driveway. Innocent and stupid me went into the house expecting my aunt to maybe be crashed out on the couch or something. Then I heard the shower running and thought, well, weird. Maybe she's taking a shower before she leaves. Then I heard my dad's laugh coming from the bathroom with my aunt laughing too. I tiptoed out of the house and went right back to my friend's house, completely flabbergasted by what I just walked in on. Yeah, this just made Thanksgiving dinners and family get-togethers much more complicated and awkward, especially if your former aunt becomes your new stepmom. What are you supposed to call her? This is like a scene from The Patriot, or maybe they were just in the bathroom telling each other funny jokes. I mean, it's possible, right? Story 12. In middle school, my crush's mom and my mom drove the exact same SUV with similar license plates. After school one day, I ran up, hopped in my mom's car, and started talking when she didn't talk back and hadn't left the pickup line. I looked at her. She was not my mom. I looked to my right and my crush is standing outside the car looking at me like I was crazy. I sheepishly got out and ran a few cars back to my real mom. A few years later, I had moved back to the area and was a cashier at a local store. My crush came through the line and recognized me and started to say, "Hey, weren't you that girl who," where I just interrupted with a yes, handed him his change, and quickly started the next customer. Story 13. After a house party when I was a teenager, me and my friend both passed out on my bed. About 2 or 3 hours later, I woke up with a horrendous cramp in my leg, so I've sat on the edge of the bed massaging it, trying to get rid of it. My friend woke up and thought I was jacking it, but got too awkward to ask what the heck was going on. He never said anything until the next morning when he was giving me a weird look. I'd prefer we never speak of it again. He loves twisting the story to any girls on nights out. Story 14. Matched with my cousin on Tinder. I was like, wow, she is, oh my God, that's my cousin, while swiping. It all happened so fast. Same thing must have happened to her because we matched. I just messaged her and said we never speak of this, agreed? And she said agreed, and we've never spoken about it. Things are weird around the holidays. We just kind of make eye contact, and then one of us finds a reason to leave the room immediately to go and talk to other family members who we have not matched with on Tinder. At least these guys dodged a bullet before they sent each other some nudes or worse. There would be no coming back from that, I think. In another world, maybe those two are members of the royal family, in which case the swiping was not an accident at all. But all joking aside, I hope these two can eventually laugh about it one day and it's no longer a cringy memory. Story 15. I was about 15, definitely old enough to know better. I was putting spiders and ice cubes on the super hot wood stove because the Linden frost effect was interesting. I thought it would be funny to do it with piss. It was not funny to do it with piss. For the uninitiated, what happens is the piss vaporizes and, depending on the volume of your bladder, produces a thick and clearly visible dark brown cloud. If you can imagine the smog line in LA, it looks like that. That cloud hugs the ceiling and hangs down about a foot. It doesn't really move because it's water vapor and leaves a film on everything it touches. It smells like, well, burnt piss, and you can also taste it. The cloud absolutely does not dissipate before your mother gets home from work. I was sort of a naughty kid anyhow, so she thought I had started a fire with something, and in order to avoid a worse punishment, I had to take responsibility. That was the only time I can remember her looking at me with actual hatred. Story 16. My sister and I thought we had a moment like this, but we spoke of it years later and we both had a misunderstanding all along. I grew up with two sisters. I was the youngest, and then there were 2 years between each of my older sisters. My middle sister and I were closer to each other than we were to the older one. One time when I was about 15, my mom found a used rubber in the trash. Since my oldest sister was living away at college at the time, we figured it wasn't hers. So my sister and her boyfriend, who thought she was being a good sibling, thought it was mine and took the blame for it. Don't think she got into much trouble, but she thought she was doing me a favor. Now, it actually was not mine, and I assume that since she accepted the blame for it, then it was hers. Nothing more happened. Years later, I was out with my sister and her boyfriend, the same one from high school, and she jokingly made a comment trying to get me to do her a favor, like, "It's the least you could do after I took the blame for that rubber for you that one time." I was so confused, and I had no idea what she was talking about till she explained the event and we realized the years-long unspoken event. I guess it must have been my sister who'd been home from college in secret for a while. There was no husband for my mom at the time, so no cheating allegations. We had a good laugh for the rest of the night. I still think it's funny that we both interpreted the event in such different ways for so long. Now, there is another possibility here, that the mom had a friend over and that's how the rubber got there, but in order to keep up appearances, she couldn't let her daughters know, so she decided to put the blame back on them to deflect from the suspicion. I also don't understand how hard it is to just throw away the evidence in the first place. Isn't that like a standard procedure in the aftermath? I mean, most people have a trash can in their home, so just wrap it in a paper towel to sort of hide it, and you're all good. Story 17. When I was college-aged, living at home but going to school, my dad worked night shift. Taking advantage of my usually empty house, because he didn't come home until 11 a.m. or so on a weekend, I decided to have some fun with my girlfriend at the time. And I did. And she was loud. Real loud. Like nearly 2 decades of Christian repression looking to take itself out entirely on my pecker loud. We finish, towel off, whatever, go downstairs and pass my dad's door on the way. It is now closed. It was for sure open earlier. Look outside and his car is in the driveway. I can hear his TV in his room. Our rooms shared a wall with the headboard of each bed. He never brought it up again. Before this, I had a girl from work over super late but no place to do stuff. So we ended up on the tailgate of my grandpa's truck, which was parked outside in the open in an alley in town. Also important, my dad's bedroom window faces this, but I thought he was asleep. We have fun, it's fine, and she leaves. And I go back in. Next morning, my dad says, "Why was there a girl here last night?" "Oh, we were just talking." "Talking, huh?" Yeah. Then he kind of gives me a I know look and says, "All right, talking." Story 18. So it passed like 5 years since my dad divorced my mom. Anyway, my mom is not too good with phone stuff, and my dad came to pick me up and my brother up from my mom's apartment. This was years ago when me and my brother were 14 and 16, so we talked out the man stuff with my dad and were allowed to joke around with my dad about this stuff. And our mom climbed in the back seat of my dad's car because my brother was in the front, and she asked my dad for help to fix her phone. She had just bought a new one. It was something with syncing contacts with Gmail, I think. So my dad opened up Chrome, and my mom was on some website about education. And my dad saw that she had around 100 tabs open. So my dad opened them up, and then it hit us. My mom was searching for adult films. And instead of deleting the history, she just made a new tab. Me, my brother, and my father were watching. We all had a short hua, but we stopped instantly. We didn't want our mom to know we saw that, and after like 2 seconds of being scared of all that whack crap my mom was searching, My dad shut down Chrome and gave the phone to my mom. He told her he didn't know how to fix it, and then my mom left the car. We never ever talked about this, not even between me and my brother. And we were 100% open to each other. I don't think I dared to touch her phone ever again. Why are older generations so horrible with technology? And why does this mom seem like she would be like 60 years old? Opening and closing tabs in your browser is like phones 101. I do feel bad for the mom though, because it seems like post-divorce she isn't doing too well in the intimacy department if she is resorting to adult films on her phone. Hopefully this discovery wasn't too traumatic for the boys and she wasn't watching something extremely weird and disturbing. Story 19. High school senior me was outside with a friend in my driveway. For some reason, I didn't have my glasses on and a neighborhood dog ran up to me out of nowhere. I couldn't tell what it was or initially see it coming, and I was so startled I pissed my pants before I saw it was a Labrador. My friend was laughing at first until she realized what happened, and then she just had a big shocked face. I was so embarrassed, but just went inside and changed. My friend was older than me and kind of a mentor figure, and didn't give me a hard time afterwards. She knew I was blind without my glasses and that I have a weakish bladder. Story 20. I never knock the door to my parents' house. It's been this way for years. We just walk in and say hello loudly as we enter. Well, a couple years ago, I did just that and noticed my mom was upstairs in the bath. The front door is opposite a mirror, and you can see up into the bathroom, and I noticed the steam. My father must have took this opportunity for some private time because I turned to the right to be greeted by him hurriedly pulling his pants up and trying to simultaneously turn the inappropriate show off that was playing silently on the TV. Luckily, my husband and then 2-year-old were not yet to the door, so I just backed out, waited 5 minutes, and then re-entered like nothing happened. It has never been mentioned, and I don't think it ever will. Story 21. I was in the marching band my freshman and sophomore years of high school. We usually practice on the blacktop parking lot right outside the band hall, but for whatever reason on this day, we practiced in the football stadium. We were taking a water break and I really had to pee, so I walked up to the concession stands where the bathrooms are. The girls' bathroom was on one side and it was locked, so I figured I'd walk around to the other side to see if the men's bathroom was unlocked. When I turned the corner, one of the tuba players was squatting in the grass having explosive diarrhea. I kind of just froze in shock and asked him if he needed help. I don't know what I was going to do to help him, but it felt right at the time. Eventually, I just walked all the way to the gym to use the bathroom, and when I went back on the field, I ran my fingers across my lips at the tuba player to let him know that I would never say a word about it. Why is it that if I were to picture the player in the band most likely to have diarrhea during practice, that it's clearly a tuba player? I can imagine that their chili corn dog and Mountain Dew didn't sit very well, and the stomach started rumbling right in the middle of practice. What would have made this story even more picturesque would be if the player was utilizing the large opening of the tuba as a depository, although playing it afterwards might not be a pleasant experience. In the comments, has anyone else played in a marching band and seen some pretty embarrassing stuff?